Yesterday around 12 o'clock, the Marshall's Fugitive Task Force, we have Marshal Kelvin Washington with us, which is comprised of his people, Richland County Sheriff's Department, City of Columbia, SLED, and Lexington County. That's the Midlands Task Force. We received information that a Damon James, who was wanted out of Houston, Texas for murder, where in October he killed his girlfriend, was at the Byron Street Apartments. These officers responded to that location. They encountered Mr. James. He started shooting at the officers. There was a short gun battle. He got into his vehicle, and once inside his vehicle, there was a single gunshot from inside the vehicle. Mr. James was transported to the hospital, where he was pronounced dead at a later time. His fatal wound is typical of a self-inflicted wound. We haven't fully determined that, and the coroner, Gary Watts, will talk about that in a minute, but right now it's looking highly possible that he took his own life. The officers did shoot, so we're doing an investigation on that. Our people are processing the forensics, getting interviews and statements from those that were present. But again, this was a very dangerous individual who had already killed someone in Texas, who was traveled here into Columbia area. When the officers confronted him, he chose to shoot it out with the officers. And we believe at some point he took his life while he was inside the vehicle. Fugitive Task Force, I think Marshall will talk about this a little bit, is a group that we've put together in the Midlands that go after the worst, those who are violent criminals. We combined this group from 8 officers from all these different agencies to go after the worst of the worst. Yesterday was just an example of that. And then when you do go after these bad guys, they are bad guys. They're not going to hesitate to shoot. They know that they've already committed some serious crimes. They have that in their mindset that if I'm not going to be taken alive. And at that point, we're forced to make decisions where we have to shoot. It's not a decision that we go out there saying that we're going to shoot our firearms. The bad guy's the one who dictates what's going to happen. If we go out there and he gives up, then it's very peaceful. But if he decides to use force and shoot at us, at that point, then he's made that decision that we have to return fire and use the weapons that we've got. Yesterday we talked about the warrior mindset and the peacemaker mindset. We wish it'd be peacemakers all the time, but the bad guys determine if we're going to become a warrior. Yesterday, the officers that present at the scene became warriors, and they had to be warriors. This time, Coroner Gary Watson talked a little bit about this investigation.
Thank you, Sheriff. As the Sheriff said, at this point in time, everything, and we're still in the process of completing the autopsy and some other testing that we're doing, but at this time, the fatal wound appears to be a contact self-inflicted wound to the head. So those are all the indications now. He was hit by some other bullets, but obviously the contact wound to the head is going to be the fatal wound. And we should finalize that up sometime today. But at this point in time, everything's consistent with that. And at this point in time, I'm sort of ruling it a suicide unless something changes on that. But that's really all we have at this point.
Have Chief Holbrook, the City of Columbia.
I'll just echo very quickly what the sheriff said. First of all, we certainly appreciate the Sheriff's Department conducting this police review and conducting this investigation. I heard this task force described a number of times as an elite task force, and I certainly agree with this. I think this is another example of the law enforcement collaboration you see in the Midlands. You know, what impresses me about this group is they anticipate what will go wrong, and I think that mindset approaching what we would consider a high-risk apprehension like we saw yesterday preserved life, in my opinion. They contained a very volatile situation and prevented it from becoming a lot worse, and I think that goes to their training and their preparation for beginning these high-risk apprehensions, if you will. So we're very proud to be part of this this unit. We do consider it an elite unit. We choose folks that participate in it because of the skills that they possess. think that paid dividends yesterday, and I'm glad that we had no other loss of life to any innocent third party, and especially our officers that are part of that unit. Thank you.
Next, we have Kelvin Washington, United States Marshal from the District of South Carolina.
Thank you so much, Sheriff, and good morning to everyone. As the chief indicated, this unit of officers here in the Midlands area, they represent the best and the brightest that the agencies in this area have to offer. Day in and day out throughout the Midlands area, as well as other parts of the state, these task forces that we've assembled together go out and go after these fugitives. And these are folks that are evading justice, that do not want to be apprehended. And oftentimes, and unfortunately, they do everything that they can do not to be apprehended, which is kind of what happened on yesterday. And so, on behalf of the U.S. Marshal Service, District of South Carolina, we certainly want to thank Sheriff Lott, Chief Holbrook, and the other chiefs and sheriffs, state directors who have allowed their personnel to be a part of this group. Again, these guys go after the worst of the worst, and they do it day in and day out. And again, we want to offer our appreciation to those agency heads who saw fit to allow members of their staff to participate in this task force. Thank you.
The purpose of the day is to get out as much information as we can. We want the community and the public to know what happened yesterday and where we're at in our investigation. So a lot of stuff is very preliminary, and we're less than 24 hours since it happened. Our role is to gather all the evidence and statements, and will be presented to the solicitor's office, and the solicitor will make a ruling on the shooting. But all indications at this point, it is a justifiable shooting, and it may end up being that we didn't take his life. It may end up being